I call Fletcher Tabuto.
Thank you, sir. Mr Speaker, all this budget did was remind me of the movie Groundhog Day. It was the same old promises and the same old apathetic thinking we have come to expect from this government. This is the same budget we have seen for the last 7 years. More than that, I genuinely believe this, Mr Speaker, that the former national leaders of that party who ran this country in their time are turning in their graves right now, Mr Speaker. While those former leaders rose or fell on their principles and what they believed in, sir, what they believed in, this Prime Minister plays the politics of focus groups, plays superficial lip service to what are critical issues in New Zealand. He is doing all he can to appease the masses. He compromises what once was, a very long time ago, actually a great party, sir. Mr Speaker, yet again we were promised a surplus. And when the Right Honourable Winston Peters was speaking earlier yesterday, I put it to some of the national backbench MPs that the Finance Minister will actually never reach a surplus in his time serving in that role. So I made the challenge, and what was the answer? Well, it's quite similar to now. I was expecting more of a response. Those national MPs went quiet. They went very silent. The derogatory shouting evaporated. It became a very quiet house to be in, sir. Mr Speaker, this bill is technically a simple one, but the repercussions of it are quite significant, and they will have huge consequences into the future. Without doubt, sir, this country will be undermined by yet another short-sighted decision to supposedly save on the bottom line in the moment. We're saving in the bottom line in the moment. What confused a few people yesterday, and I was one of them, who were listening, was in Mr English's speech, I'll get to that, Mr Seymour, was in Mr English's speech in the House, he spoke of how providing an annual contribution of $521 per year and a kickstart of $1,000 for new members was, and I quote for the members opposite, these incentives provide a strong reason to join KiwiSaver. Yeah, fair enough, I said. I couldn't agree more, but then, sir, in the very next breath, the Minister makes the statement that, and I quote, removing the Kickstart package will have little or no effect on the number of people expected to join the scheme. Sir, Mr Speaker, which statement does the Minister stand by? Which one is true? Because they completely contradict one another. Let me tell you who should stand by the first one, because the second is patently wrong. So, as a lecturer of economics,
Order. Just calm down,
I would like to take the opportunity to just point out a few facts that Mr Seymour may have missed when he used Coase's theory to debate in the House earlier tonight. Coase himself said, actually, it wasn't really my theory at all, but more apt for this night's discussion, sir, was he said, actually, my theory, like the ACT Party itself, actually bears no semblance to reality and cannot be used in reality. There's an economic theory that cannot be used in that way. But what I would tell my students, more specifically, sir, was that if we undertake an action, we must consider its consequences. What consequences is this party hoping to achieve when it looks to remove the Kickstart contribution from the KiwiSaver savings schemes of everyday New Zealanders? What is it that they're hoping to achieve? So what they do is rob from the next generation. Why are we robbing from the next generation? What is the justification? Sir, as far as I can see, the only justifiable reason, probably in their minds, is to try and actually reach that mythical surplus that year after year, like Groundhog Day, never changes Promises made and promises broken, sir. The Minister himself actually spoke so eloquently in his speech about spending wisely now in order to generate significant long-term savings in the future. And I'll quote him. It's social investment approach.
Point of order, Megan Woods. Dr. Megan Woods.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I was reluctant to take this point of order, Mr Chairman, but I'm having trouble hearing the Speaker. We're not having contributions in the debate from members opposite, but what we are having is a raucous racket that is only bringing this House into disrepute.
The point is very well made. The members on my right should tone it down a bit. Carry on.
Speaker. I was quoting from the Minister. It's social investment approach, which is about targeted, evidence-based investment to secure better long-term results for the most vulnerable New Zealanders. We're willing to pay a bit more up front, he said, to get real and sustainable change. And in doing so, we can generate significant long-term savings for the Crown. Pretty infallible logic, but it's not being implied in this case, sir. Why is that logic good in one circumstance but not good in this? Sir, for decades, New Zealand First and those with common sense have been talking about the benefits of saving to the individual and to the country. Why? Because, as debated in the House just only several weeks back, we were told by this very government how wonderful the Cullen Fund was, for example. How the asset of this government was growing, circling that wonderful $30 billion mark. So that kind of growth, those kind of sums, well ahead of projections actually, are what a small country like this needs to help our people. This provides a financial stability and a confidence as we move forward with proportionately more of New Zealanders moving into retirement. That large sum of money is working for the people of New Zealand. So the KiwiSaver funds that are invested create so much wealth within New Zealand. The Minister is simply, as said so often tonight, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Well, actually, so he thinks. It's not as simple as that. But whilst a few balance sheets today may be changed around, what he's doing is robbing from future generations to attain this mythical budget surplus. But he removes a huge driver in the New Zealand economy. Sir, the point I make to this House today is that this is a disincentive. It is plain and simple. And it was noted earlier that the Prime Minister himself, at the inception of this wonderful scheme, said there weren't enough incentives in the program and New Zealanders needed more to get involved. New Zealand First argues that you are giving away too much. You will argue it costs too much. And National has said that they've spent $2.5 billion on this scheme since its inception, and removing this initial lump sum contribution will save approximately $120 million a year. But that's actually only over the next 4 years. And as the fund actually reaches a critical mass in terms of the people subscribing, contributions will decline fairly rapidly over time. So these minuscule savings are in the now and actually do not go on for much longer. We're robbing billions of dollars in supplementary retirement income from our next generation. This small cut has a giant multiplier effect and has not been taken into account, or if it has been ignored. New Zealand First cannot support such short-sighted change that saves next to nothing today, but costs so very much for our future generations tomorrow. It is an incalculable potential that the growing pool of wealth could have contributed to the New Zealand economy as investors sought to grow their returns. Mr Speaker, New Zealand First does not support this bill.